You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 5. Terror Firma.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Norman Lau. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss every episode of this animated series, discover what makes them special, and see if there are any morals and meanings and messages contained therein.
This week, episode 5, Terra Firma, Solid Ground. The one where an M-class planet from Dreamcatcher teaches our young cadets that every member of the crew, even Gwyn, must work together as a team. Now, please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth review podcast, so if you have not seen this episode yet, you may want to put us on pause. We'll wait. Watch the episode. And then welcome back to hear us talk about it.
This show is produced both for YouTube and as a regular podcast download. So please be sure to engage the like button and subscribe to Mission Log Prodigy on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel. And please make sure to follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, podcasts.roddenberry.com, and more. You can also follow Mission Log Prodigy on Twitter at ML_Prodigy to keep up with all our latest news and updates.
I just want to say that Norman and I are very active on that Twitter, and it is a super fun, happy time. So please come and join us and check it out. Mm-hmm. But before I let us jump into the recap, here is why this podcast and the Twitter is so unique. We want to hear from you, the younger Prodigy fans out there, at a ripe 21 apiece. Norman and I are not young enough. We would like you to share your thoughts on the show, so please send us a 1 to 2 minute voice message at missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. And in the message, please answer these questions. What is your first name and your age? Did you like the episode? It's okay if you didn't. What was your favorite part? And what did you learn? And we look forward to hearing your comments, which will be featured at the end of the show. And just to start things off, here are our answers to the same question. Norman, we usually start with me, but it's my copy, so I'm going to ask you.
I'm on the hot seat. Uh-oh.
No pressure. You definitely didn't prepare.
I know.
Did you like this episode?
I absolutely love this episode.
Yay.
But I'm going to do another but I think because now I finally have seen both episodes that tie together. Last week when we were talking about Dreamcatcher, and now this week we're talking about Terra Firma. Mm-hmm. It makes the one big episode that I wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. And still, there's still a little bit of question that may or may not be answered at the end of this episode, or into the next episode whenever we get to that one. So yeah, but I did love this episode quite a bit. How about you?
So I do want to put a little caveat that I am acquaintances. I am friends with the Benson sisters who wrote this episode. So I came into this knowing that I was going to like it because I have liked their work in the past. They have a really great background in the Birds of Prey run. If there's any comic book readers of all ages out there, that's a really great story. So I was pretty sure going into this that it was going to be a super fun, happy time. And I did like the episode. Last week, like you mentioned, we weren't certain if this was a 2-parter or a 3-parter or just this hanging Chad that we were never going to deal with. And I thought it was really satisfying in this week's episode to see the themes from last week carry over and the added action. There's a lot more action. Last week was set up. This week is action. And I think it made for a really wonderful payoff.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Next question, Norman. Mm-hmm. What was your favorite part?
Oh, I think this might be a lot of people's favorite part. And I'm just going to, again, jump right to the end of the episode. It was the reveal of the Protostar Engine. I've been waiting since the very first time I saw the trailer, what that central nacelle beam was in the center of the ship, like where the secondary hull is. And it's not necessarily a secondary hull. It's the casing for a completely new engine. And the way that they revealed it, it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. I felt like I was 5 years old again, like our younger viewers. I was crying at the end of this episode. I was so happy.
I'm imagining you like the head explosion emoji, just all throughout the end of the episode.
Yeah, for about the 5 minutes that we saw it at the end. Absolutely. It was unbelievable. How about you? What was your favorite part?
I really liked kind of a more quiet moment, and it was Gwen standing up to the diviner. Honestly, I thought this confrontation was going to come a little bit later in the season. It was so satisfying to have that door closed. Not saying it will never reopen, and I think that would make some interesting drama, but I found it really, really cathartic to see her stand up and kind of come into her own. So it was my favorite moment when she said, "No, you're not my real father." It's not what she said. So lastly, now that I'm done telling lies, what did you learn, Norman? How did you expand your mind?
You know, this is one of my all-time favorite morals, and it's just as good for adults as it definitely is for children, is everyone deserves a second chance to fix their mistakes. Everyone deserves their omega-13. And if you don't know what that is,
then
go Google it.
You're too young and you shouldn't be Googling it.
So I got my omega-13 in this episode.
Nice. My lesson is very similar to yours, and that is there's always room for redemption. And that is something that I think is truer the longer you go on in your life. And just because you make a mistake doesn't mean that you're a bad person. So this episode really drove that home.
That's well said. Well said. And thank you so much, Ashley, for your answers. And thank you for asking me questions, too, so I could give my answers. And we're really looking forward to hearing what our younger viewers have to say, because this is such a big episode with big things happening. And let's get to that in this week's episode recap for Star Trek Prodigy, Episode 5, Terra Firma, written by Julie Benson and Shauna Benson, directed by Olga Ulanova. After saving Gwen and Murph from their crashed shuttle, and after watching the Protostar land somewhere far, far away from where they are, hologram Janeway contacts Captain Dal and his crew and tells them that the Protostar landed safely. Janeway activates a homing beacon so that Dal, Rocktalk, Murph, Zero, and Jank and Pog can easily find their way back to the ship. However, they all have to walk back all that way because the runaway was captured and maybe even eaten by the planet's vines, proving to them that it doesn't want them to escape, ever. Gwen's leg was broken in the shuttle crash, and even as Rocktalk offers to help, Gwen commands her sword to become a splint to support her leg because she refuses anyone's help to walk. As they adventure further into the planet's forest, they realize that they are always the same distance away from the ship, no matter how far they walk towards it. Murder Planet, or Planet Larry, whatever Jankum or Rocktalk named the planet, one thing is certain: it is trying to confuse them so they will never reach the ship. Back on the Protostar, Janeway continues to use the ship's defenses to prevent the vines from doing any more damage, and in doing so, she discovers that there is something drawing large amounts of backup power from the ship, something even she doesn't know about and cannot access, even as a former captain, something called gravimetric Protostar containment. Meanwhile, our young cadets are still trying to reach the Protostar, but realize that no matter how far they walk, they aren't getting any closer. Suddenly, the vines begin to close in on them, and Dal soon realizes that the stun setting on the phasers have no effect on them. Gwen, however, has a different idea. She creates a torch, throws it at the growing vine monster, and sets it on fire, which works, but also sets the whole area around them on fire as well. Cornered and out of options, Gwen orders all of them to jump down a cliff and hopefully to safety. And once out of harm's way, Gwen is thanked for her quick thinking that saved the crew. But Dal isn't so grateful, blaming Gwen for putting them in danger in the first place by trying to steal the ship. However, the planet continues to attack them, this time with acid rain, the type of rain that burns when it drops on them. So in looking for shelter, Rocktalk spots an abandoned ship. And as it turns out, it's an abandoned Klingon bird of prey, complete with food rations and even a mek'lith, the sharp sword that Klingon warriors used in battle. As the rest of the crew confess which dreams they saw earlier when they first landed on this planet, Dal and Gwen finally reconnect as the friends they once were on Tars Lamora. They both share something very personal, that they feel abandoned and alone and are both looking for somewhere to belong. As they both stare out into the vastness of a sky full of stars, they also both realize that the stars are fixed points in the sky and can lead them back to the Protostar. After breaking camp and restarting their journey, their path is blocked by what is no illusion from the planet. A very real dreadnought stands in their way, having tracked down Gwyn from when she contacted him and the diviner when she thought she controlled the protostar. However, even Dreadnought is unable to fight the planet's vines as a tangle of thorny fingers capture him, allowing our heroes to escape. During the fight, Dal and the crew get separated from Gwyn as Dreadnought chases after everyone but her. Gwyn tries to crawl her way back to the ship and sees the diviner off in the distance. Desperately trying to reach her father, the diviner sees the protostar nearby and chooses to claim the ship for himself instead of saving his daughter, who is almost completely covered in vines. However, even the diviner can be tricked by the illusions of the planet, and what he thought was the protostar was just another trap, and proved to Gwyn that the ship is more important to her father than she is. Little did she know that Dal and the crew actually made it back to the real protostar, and they came back to save her because she has proven herself to be one of them, one of the crew. Finally, after warping away from the planet, no matter how fast they try to outrun the diviner ship, they just don't have the power, as the protostar is caught by a tractor beam. Jankum tells him that something called a gravimetric protostar containment generator is sucking down all the power. But Zero realizes that the protostar isn't just the ship's name, but the actual power source of the special mystery engine all this time. And as the diviner hails them, Gwyn stares down her father and chooses their safety instead of following her father's command. She orders the computer to engage the protostar drive, and Proto warps away from him, from danger and far away into the unknown. The end. Oh my God. I love this story. As you can tell, because I'm super excited. Right?
It's so funny because as you went through it, I was like, oh, I didn't even make any notes about how great that was, or oh, that was so awesome.
Well, I think you feel it. I think we both still have like a lot of that electrical excitement from when we first watched it to like right now as we're recording. So I think we should just jump right into our observations. These are just things that kind of struck us really like quickly and immediately, and then we'll get into our morals and meanings and messages and the observations afterwards. So let's start with you, Ashley. What really kind of like came to the surface for you really quickly?
Oh boy, I sure don't know how to spell Janeway. All my notes say Janeway this week.
Is this subliminal?
It's just because she's so. People are gonna think this is. I mean, this in a derogatory way. I don't. She's so darn cute. Like Kate Mulgrew is a stunning, powerful, gorgeous woman. But there's something about hologram Janeway where like I just want a little action figure to like put on my desk. She's so cute. But she is a hologram, right? Said that like 6 times now. What doesn't she know? Why doesn't she know things? Why was Chakotay the one to delete them? I have so many questions. Like, to me, that is the mystery box within the mystery. Like, that's the thing that I want to unpack that is going to be 6 or 7 questions down in the narrative structure. But, like, why doesn't she know these things? We think of the EMH from Voyager. He knew all of the things. So I have questions.
Yeah, when she was sitting down and accessing the controls, which is amazing, by the way, because if you're a Voyager fan, seeing Captain Janeway sitting in the command chair of a brand new ship doing Captain Janeway things like clicking her fingernails on the Elcars and, you know, and being flustered and saying, what would Janeway, the real captain, do? And she's like, clean house. She owned that. Even though she was a hologram, she owned that scene. I loved that so much. Can I jump right into my first one?
I think you must.
I don't think that I've talked about this. The Protostar of the show. Hello, pun, manufacturing, engine, amazingness. So, okay. I love the Protostar. I always have since the very beginning. But what I love about it even more is that the reveal of the engine is part of the NX class of this ship. NX class, for all of our younger viewers out there, here's a little bit of history behind NX. NX means experimental, which means that this is a one-of-a-kind ship. We don't know why it's out here, but maybe it's because of this engine. This engine is a one-of-a-kind, as far as we know, engine. And now we've actually seen what it can do, which is maybe why the diviner wants this particular ship. Maybe he wants it for this engine. So it makes this ship very special. We finally got to see what it's all about. I am here for every single version of every single product of every single dollar that I have to spend to get every single one of them out there.
You hear that, Eagle Moss?
I love this ship so much. But because it's also part of the crew now.
Ooh, good call. It's also in the grand tradition of new Trek themes that are kind of going on right now, but it also reminds me of how in Voyager, we were seeing in Voyager, they go more warp than they've ever warped before, right? They really push the limits of what Star Trek warp speed and warp technology can do to sort of necessitate their possible, I don't know why I'm trying to not spoil it, escape from the Delta Quadrant. But also it reminded me of the first season of Discovery when we introduced the mycelial network and the spore drive based on mycelial networks on Earth. And it's interesting to see that concept of like, if this, then what? Like, how much more advanced can our engines be? Like, that little piece of future tech is very, very interesting to me.
A baby star? Oh my God. We got to talk about Murph and Rock Talk, because as great as this episode is, they are stealing the show from behind the scenes, left and right.
They're not even subtle about their stealing of the show, man. Like, they pair them up in this week's episode, and I know that, like, the Rock Talk Gwyn sister relationship we love, but in the last episode, we saw that Rock Talk just wants a companion, a friend, a pet, but using the word pet feels a little, I don't know, feels a little offensive in a way that I don't mean for someone as obviously intelligent as Murph. And so to see, she gets her wish. She's the only one who kind of gets her need fulfilled because she now has her buddy, and they are literally attached at the shoulder.
Isn't that amazing? It's actually just, it's beautiful. I don't want to sound corny. I'm just telling you how I feel. I think it's absolutely beautiful that they've found like this relationship and they're owning it. Like, you know, the animation is owning that relationship, which is, and we're here for it. We're loving it. They're not main characters all the time, but they just can't help steal the scenes from underneath like the main story characters. I need to ask like a big question though. And this may be a spoiler, so I'm going to say this for people that maybe haven't watched Voyager yet. This may be a spoiler, but the Klingons are referenced in this episode in a very big way. We saw a downed Klingon bird of prey. If you actually really looked at the broken ship that they all huddled in from the acid rain, so that was a Klingon bird of prey. They were eating bowls of gagh, as far as I know. That's what it looked like to me. But then also Dal had a mek'leth, and Gwyn, you know, she was talking about all this Klingon stuff. There were Klingons in the Delta Quadrant at the end of Voyager in season 7. So is this some type of reference to that? Is there another way of being able to get in and out of the Delta Quadrant from the Alpha Quadrant? Now, because we have now our next reference from the Alpha Quadrant and from Tellarites as seen in Jank and Pog to now Klingons on this planet. What do you think?
I definitely think so. And I think if we didn't think that the writers weren't, I hope you went with me on that journey.
I'm all there.
That the writers weren't planting Voyager Easter eggs, I think that would be doing a disservice to them. I think it's slightly more subtle here than you and I in particular might be used to seeing on Lower Decks, where like the Easter eggs are part of they're much flashier. Right. And I think it's going to be a real treat for viewers who are familiar with it. But also, if you don't know that Klingons did in fact make it to the Delta Quadrant, and you maybe just know what Klingons are, or you're just familiar with what Worf looks like, I think that's cool on its own. And then if nothing else, Klingons have a great aesthetic. So from a design standpoint, and the show is beautifully designed, the proto warp engine is so beautiful. They're fun to have, and they're fun to see people interact with in this universe. I bet you we get a Klingon before the end of the season.
It'll be interesting to see, and especially since we saw the very first episode in Lost and Found, we saw this interpretation of a Kazon. You know, the Kazon
so cool.
in this universe, and he looked way better, I think, in my opinion, than the actual live-action Kazon from the series, you know, back from the late 90s. So we'll see what their interpretations are for even more races. We know that the Ferengi appeared in Voyager. We know that some other...
I hope the Hirogen show up, because they were name-dropped, and I would love to see the Hirogen again.
And done in this style, because a Hirogen Their armor, amazing.
Yep.
They were definitely threatening the Delta Quadrant. Hey, and you know what? We have 15 episodes left just in the first season alone.
There's
So-
time.
Oh, speaking of really cool, dark and gothy armor, and I have to give credit where credit is due, because I have to believe that Olga is a fan of Lord of the Rings. Here's my theory, and here's why. Because there was a scene in this episode where Dreadnought, who looks fairly similar to a Nazgul, chases 4 out of the 5 crew members, and they huddle underneath a giant log. There's a scene in Fellowship of the Ring where a Nazgul is literally sniffing out the hobbits underneath the giant log. Frodo looks up through a hole in the log and sees the Nazgul looking for them, the same way that Rok-Tahk looked up through the hole in the vines, seeing Dreadnought looking for them. I love that scene. I'm sure that this is homage to that scene in Fellowship of the Ring. Did you notice that too?
So this is a testament, I think, to our friendship, because this is not the first discussion that Norman and I have had about this specific scene, without any doubt that we would both know immediately what this was about. I thought of that immediately. I was so excited when that also crossed your mind, because Lord of the Rings is my favorite fictional thing. I know everyone at home is so disappointed to say sorry, but like Lord of the Rings is what's like sings to my soul. And when this happened, because Pippin's my favorite hobbit, and Rok-Tahk is my favorite member of the crew. And I was like, oh, this is just everything I want. It's so cool. And again, if not Miss Olga, then surely someone in the design and animation department absolutely was homaging LOTR. And I tip my hat to them for doing that.
It just kind of like struck me like out of the blue. I'm like,
so good.
Is this that scene? It is.
Just short one pony. That's all we were missing.
Before we get to our deeper observations, Ashley, are there any other points that you would like to get to?
I just want to say that I thought Zero had a really lovely moment in this episode where we talked about a baby star, and that's what a protostar was. They had a really emotional reaction to that, which I thought was fascinating, because Medusians are still kind of a mystery, and Zero has had not as much character development as Dal or Gwyn, and I think they're positioning them to be sort of the third lead in the triumvirate if we're taking Janeway out of the equation. So there are depths there in Zero and in Zero's relationship to the ship that I'm really interested to see plumbed moving forward. And I don't think we can talk about Zero enough as the character with maybe the second cool. We all know Rok-Tahk has the coolest design, the second coolest design in the series. I just wanted to make sure that shouted out Zero.
Well, I mean, Zero probably has some of the best one-liners, maybe like even rivals Jank and Pog, because when Dal grabbed Zero to turn Zero into kind of like a lantern or a spotlight, what did Zero say? Something like, I don't know what's going on, but I'd be happy to help. I'm happy to help as I can. I lost it. I was like, yep.
Aggressively polite.
That's very typical Zero. I love it. I love Zero's character. I hope we get more in an arc at some point in time. But I also think that Zero may be one of like the way to give the ship an actual voice, because Zero can telepathically maybe talk to the ship. So everyone gets paired off. You have Dal and Gwyn, you have Rok-Tahk and Murph, you have Zero in the ship, and you have Zero in the ship's soul, but you have maybe Jank and Pog in the ships as a mechanic and engineer.
Yeah, with his
hand hammer. So big things happening, a lot of speculation, but I want to kind of like turn this now into where we take a look at some of the even deeper meanings in the show, which there are. I'd like for you to start off, Ashley, because I love putting you on the spot. I want to see if you're ready, because we are going to we got to get our feels prepared.
Oh, there were a lot of feels in this. It was interesting seeing so last week's episode, we saw everybody's secrets on display. And in this week's episode, in Terra Firma, we really got to see everyone's secrets internalized. And we got to watch them, kind of like if you've ever been in therapy, do the exercise of moving through them a little bit to begin their evolution into who they're going to become by the end of this series. And the crew doesn't know it yet, but we know as the audience that everybody has a secret. Even hologram Janeway has a secret in what is happening to her, and ultimately what her motives are, or what the people in charge of her motives are. And these obstacles have been and are going to be really gratifying to watch them grapple with. Like the moment where Gwyn finally chooses the crew and then sort of in that sequence where they choose her in the end and they all go off together. We're going to see those play out, and seeing how their secrets are internalized, I thought was really good watching this week. What is a moral meaning or message for you?
Well, I like that you brought up choices, because that
Mhm.
was one of my big takeaways from this episode, is that now the crew are starting to make the harder choices that are literally like life and death choices. And these are, for all intents and purposes, Dal and Gwyn at least are young adults, probably
Mhm.
having, in our age frame, in our understanding of their ages, they're probably around anywhere between 17 to maybe 19, maybe
Mhm.
21 tops. These are the times where you have to start making very adult decisions in your lives, decisions about who you are, what you want to be, who your friends are, who your friends want to be, and do they want to be with you based on who you are and how you treat them. So choices, this is growing up. And in this episode, these choices ask them very specific questions. Who are you, and what do you want? To steal basically two of my favorite questions from Joe Michael Straczynski, the creator of Babylon 5. We see Gwyn make that choice. Who are you? I'm my father's daughter, but what do you want? I want to not be my father's daughter in the end, when she chooses independence. The same thing with Dal. He didn't know who he is, but this is what he wants to be. He chooses a family that I never had. So these are they're very realistic for people. I think why this episode is so good, because people can project a lot of these very same questions into these characters that we're falling in love with. And I think that's really important, to be able to have that deeper connection with what you're watching.
Well said. Well said.
I practice a lot. I really do. I
Wow.
rehearse all of this like hours at a time.
I
I do.
just I just feel like I can't. You just threw something down, and I don't know if I can step up to the plate on that.
You
Uh,
can. You
well, because
can. Let's do it.
my next one is, it's very kind of a simple thesis in that it's okay to accept help. It's even okay to ask for help. Gwyn blatantly refuses to accept help throughout this episode. She is physically injured. She's emotionally injured, and everyone's pretty emotionally fractured in the crew, to be fair, as are we all. But we see it really physicalized with her, with her psychic armor sword thing when
I
she
want
makes
that
it.
too.
I want it so bad. When she makes it into a
Right?
leg brace, I was like, I would jump
I
off.
know.
I would dive headfirst into many more things than I am willing to right now. I'm also really interested in seeing that explored more, and like, is that a piece of tech? Is that a cultural thing to her people? Like, I have a lot of questions about her sort of psychic bond with it.
Mhm.
And in the end, she literally has to be saved by her new family, and she has to accept help in order to, as you say, no longer be her father's daughter, and to begin the evolution into the woman, no longer the young woman that we're going to see her become.
Did you notice that in that moment when Dal was reaching out to her and there was that gap between them, she literally used what was a weapon as a
Yes,
bridge?
yes. Did it
Mhm.
make me think of Aladdin? Do you trust me? Do you trust me? Maybe just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But I
Tiny.
love the symbology of that. This, I'm, instead of using it defensively or aggressively, I'm using it as literally an extension to reach out to you because I need your help, and this is the only way I can get to you is through this weapon.
Hmm.
I found that such a brilliant directing choice, writing choice. I have a question for you, because now we're tipping the conversation more on the Gwen side.
Hmm.
Has this been Gwen's story this entire time, and we just didn't notice it?
Oh, we kind of
Like,
talked about that in the pilot. With the word prodigy and the use of the word progeny and what does it mean,
mhm,
and its feminine roots. And I suspect that we are going to learn that they are all prodigy in some way.
mhm,
But I really thought this was going to be Dal's show, and it does feel, at least in this first arc, I kind of feel like this fifth episode closes off the first arc of the story. We could be
totally.
3 weeks down the line, and that could not be true, but that, at least today, at the time of this recording, rings really
Mhm,
true to me. It really feels like it's Gwyn's show, and what's interesting is because this is a co-production with Nickelodeon. Again, lazy comparison is Avatar: The Last Airbender, which yeah, it's Aang's show and Aang is the star, but Katara like is really the emotional driving force and the heavy lifting in that show, and it's debatable whether it's a co-lead or it's her. And I think we're in for the same type of journey with Gwyn and Dal. Honestly, I like Gwyn and her little red nose a little bit better right now as a character, maybe because she's got more character development. So I'm not mad about it.
I hope
I just
we
think she's
recorded
so cool.
all of that frequency.
Someone make that into a text alert that would please never use that. It'd be horrific.
It may shatter glass. It may shatter glass, but
Somewhere a baby's crying, a dog is barking.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of like put this into context because I agree with what you're saying. So at the very beginning of Lost and Found, I think that we even see this setup with how she feels about the Cation orphan being kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. She's like, enough.
Where is
enough
that baby?
Right? I know. I thought we were going to get to her sooner or later before the big break that's coming up. But we saw her falter there. We saw her falter with Rock Talk later. And now you have her making the choice between the Diviner and her crew at the end of Dreamcatcher, bookended by this choice of almost giving the ship to the Diviner and seeing how that worked out, like at the end here, and finally making the decision to, save the crew and be part of that family. So it's always been there. She's been sidetracked a little bit being in the bridge and seeing work things out. At the very end, she's in the big chair. She made the decision to use the Protostar. She made the decision to leave her father. It seems like, at least for these 5 episodes, the subversion of our expectation has been successful in that way. We thought it was going to be Dal.
Definitely.
But I think that, I don't know, the way it was framed, you had Dal easily in a first officer stance.
That's okay. So I have that note slightly
You're starting to do the
lower down. Yes, and I know Gwyn was injured, so like she had to sit down, but they put her in the captain's chair. And Jamie was the first female captain to lead a series, and yes. And but also you could still tell a really compelling story, which again to bring up sort of the new Trek ethos, like Discovery doesn't star the captain,
right?
So if Gwyn is going to become maybe a shift in our POV focus, or emerge as the ultimate lead, that's fine. Or maybe the narrative does shift back to Dal and he learns, which would be great to see a male character learn, that sometimes you're a better executor, you're a better support player, and that's the best position for him. But yes, they put her in the chair. I want her to be the captain.
It's just there. The show is so smart. The writing is so smart. The Hageman brothers have really, I think they've really trusted their team to not waste any opportunity to put something in there, whether either it's overt or subliminal as a theme or a message in the show. Especially, we've talked about this before, Ash. We've talked about the found family.
Yep.
And something so profound in this one scene, it was when Gwyn and Dal were, they were staring at the stars. Now, there's part of maybe the young adult audience that was waiting for them to kiss in that scene, maybe.
Oh, they will.
But I loved how they basically shared their deepest, darkest desires. Gwyn said to Dal, like, you want something that no one can give you, and I want something I may never get. The longing that they have for being complete is a very profound, very relatable need that many of us have. And I think many young people have, because they're trying to find their way, throughout their own lives, whether it's their way with their own family or at school or with friends or in society, being accepted, not being accepted. It's a very difficult time for people of a certain age growing up. And I think that that's very important, that there is a love that they want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that love can't be given to them from somewhere or somebody else. And that's this found family. Rock Talk always extends help to Gwyn.
Yes, yeah.
Murph is there because Murph wants to just share as much love as he can with his crew. Jankum is that snotty little brother that hits you in the arm but cares about you every single time that he does.
Oh, he'll mess someone up for you. Like, he's going to hit you, but if I hit you, he would come for me, for sure.
Yeah, he's kind of like that secret weapon little brother. Like, no one messes with my big sister or something like that. So kindness, is love. Sharing is love. Obviously, saving each other and having each other's back, especially in times of this big crisis, is also love. I think that's something that has been definitely repeated over the course of the episodes. But what do you think about that theme? Do you think that they're playing it just right? I think they're balancing it just right.
I'm so glad you asked, because I was going to add that it is incredibly emotionally astute and mature writing on young characters. And sometimes, and I say this as someone who writes about younger characters all the time, sometimes as an adult person, you forget what it was like to be 16, 14, 10, 8, 4. And kids are incredibly smart and full of incredible depths. And it's so nice to see that in our fantastical alien Star Trek LLAP show, we're giving them their due, but there's also room for fart jokes, because I think there's been one every single episode so far. But I think that's the delicate balance, right? Is like, we're going to treat them with the respect that these characters are due. We're going to give them their moments of emotional depth, and then we can earn blowing a raspberry in somebody's face. And I am just continually impressed with the show in all aspects. It's beautiful. It's well written. It's got references for days. And Janeway's here. What's not to love?
So for these last 5 episodes, or I should say these first 5 episodes, the last of what we've seen, are these stories meeting your expectations in that way?
Meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, they're
exceeding.
They're exceeding. They're blowing them out of this universe. And even like the jokes that I made fun of earlier, like there are genuinely funny moments. The merger of the different narrative types, the evolution of the characters, and there hasn't been a ton going on, but the fact that we're already seeing growth is super, super impressive. This episode is satisfying because we get the cliffhanger wrapped up, and we're just left to wonder what next. That's a West Wing joke for all of the actual young people at home listening. For me, that's being led by, the unexpected lead, Gwyn. She put me on my toes during this episode. There's a tremendous amount of growth for her. They put her in the captain's chair, and is she competition or collaboration for Dal, which is, I think, going to be the undercurrent of the next 5 episodes. But yes, I am more than satisfied. Hamilton Q, are you satisfied with these episodes?
Yeah, I didn't know actually what to expect. When I first saw this, when I first saw the series advertised with the Nickelodeon Rocket Orange logo, and then Star Trek Prodigy, and then obviously marketed under both banners, I knew that it was going to be quality animation because I saw the quality animation in the preview, but I had absolutely no idea. And this is the honest truth. I had no idea that I would fall in love with a series again this quickly and this deeply. And I think it's because this is something that I love seeing in Star Trek. I love seeing lessons. I love seeing characters learn from those lessons. And I love hearing about those lessons learned from our audience, because these audience members are similar to the age groups that we have here in the show. There's this great, wonderful synergy and kind of like this completed circle of cause, effect, and story that's happening. I didn't expect that. And I think that's, it took me completely off guard. And I love at the very end of this episode when Gwyn said, sorry, I keep saying Gwen, "You made your choice, Father. Now I've made mine." So we see her accept her fate now for the rest of the series. But one thing, though, that I still love bringing up is that we finally accepted and seen the full character of the Protostar.
Yeah, your baby.
I know. I love ships being characters because the ships are the house for the family, right? Serenity, for example, in Firefly. Name, most science fiction shows, their ship is kind of like their nth character, right? The character that you come home to, that protects you, and it takes you away from, the mission that you're on or the danger that you're in. And it's going to be really hard to stay away from this show for so long, between now when this show airs, our podcast, to January 6th.
It's so long.
2022. That's the time that we're gonna have to wait in between. I know.
Jacob Pog is
the tears
not
are real.
happy.
Oh, Jenkin Pog is not happy. And why is Jenkin Pog always told last? He didn't even know about this, right? It's like this, this whole 5-episode arc. It's a great way to start the show. We have 15 episodes left. When we actually finally get to them after January 6th, then we have an entire other greenlit second season. So if you want to make sure that you stay in touch with everything that we're doing for this podcast, we are planning on trying to get some special episodes done in the meantime. So please stay connected, subscribed, engaged, do all the like and the share and all that stuff for Roddenberry Entertainment.
We've reached the end of our show. Jenkin Pog is sad. But thank you to everyone for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you smash that like button and share it. And then double smash the subscribe button. That's the most important one. You want to subscribe to our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or find us on your podcatcher of choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment, executive producer Rod Roddenberry. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. And if Jenkin Pog would like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to be with us. And we look forward to covering all the future episodes of Star Trek Prodigy for you when we return from the mid-season break. And now it's time for our very special incoming transmissions.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
Okay, what's your name?
Look!
Rook. Did you like tonight's episode?
Yes!
All right. What was your favorite part of the episode?
When Zero in the last episode found the creature.
Uh-huh. In the maze?
Yeah.
Okay.
In maze.
And you thought it looked like the creature they were fighting in this episode?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. And you liked them fighting that creature?
Yes.
Very cool. What did you learn from this episode?
Always help out friends.
So like they helped out Gwen at the end?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So what's your name?
Sarah.
How old are you?
6.
Okay. Did you like the episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part?
Everything.
Everything, okay. And what do you think the episode is trying to teach us?
How to not split up and stay together.
There you go. I like that. Okay. Can you say bye?
Bye.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.